We back in the house. Got my coffee, and you clicked on the video. Hopefully you enjoy it. Anywho, let's begin. This is I'm planning for at least or less than 25 minutes on this last video on my story, because I kind of gave the major portion of my story in my life. I ended at around 27 years old, where, if you guys recall, you saw the last video, I actually ended up finding a church and became a Christian. Met a real good a guy by the name of Mark, and became good friends with him. And if you recall, his parents took me in, and that's where I left off. You know, his parents took me in, and so me and my girlfriend broke up. You know, obviously I still had a son, and so let's pick up from there. So this coffee's so amazing. So basically what ended up happening was, like, I went hard for the Lord. God did something for me, and I there's a sense in which I threw myself at the mercy of God, and I just said, listen, I don't know much about God, and but I want to learn as much as I possibly can. I literally began to fall in love with Jesus and what He has done for me and stuff. And I began to realize, like, wow, like, this whole entire time I've been fleeing from God, and He was patient with me throughout my life, and was providentially guiding my life. And I began to realize, like, wow, God is extremely patient and good, and so I want to follow God. I want to learn more about Him. And so I just went hard for the Lord. Now, concerning my girlfriend, or my ex-girlfriend at that time, obviously we broke up. She ended up leaving Port St. Lucie, and she ended up marrying the guy she cheated on me with. And she ended up basically moving out of Port St. Lucie. Well, what happened was, for an entire year, I had no clue what happened to her. And more stuff happened right before that, but I'm going to skip it for now because it's not really... but all I know is that at one point, even after she cheated on me with her boss, and I had already moved out, what happened was I was staying with Mark and then he gave a deadline of about a couple of months for me to stay with him. And so I did. I stayed with him from end of October to end of December, so about 2 months that family was so kind to take me in. And in the meantime, I was working still, and I was going through the worst. I mean, pain and suffering and darkness, and trying to get over over all of it. And so, but at the same time, just going hard. I was going to like 4 different churches in 1 week. I mean, I was attending Bible studies, and I was just diving myself into Christ. And it turns out that after those 2 months was over at Mark's house, then I kind of didn't have anywhere else to go. So I actually reached out to a friend of mine that was working with me at Chili's, an older guy, and he basically allowed me. He had an actual trailer, like a little trailer home, a very small little trailer on the side of his house in Port St. Lucie. And he said, hey, it's a small little thing, but you can go ahead and stay in there, And and keep in mind, this was the end of December. It was extremely cold. It was freezing inside that trailer. And I remember all of the stuff that I was going through, from having to start all over by myself, from being lonely, from heartbroken and sad and depressed, and trying to find the Lord. And I mean, it was hell. And having been reduced to having nothing, to stay in a trailer, you know what I'm saying, like super ghetto, and it's like, wow, like this is like. And so I felt like God was humbling me, right, and crushing me, right, so that he can rescue me out of that and show me how awesome he is, right. So that's what happened. Like I stayed in that trailer for a couple of months, and like I said, I mean, even words will not describe the sorrow I was going through. And so here's what happened. By the time, so January, February, March, at around the end of March. So I stayed there about from January till March-ish or whatever. And from around that time, I actually, I remember, like, I got a text message or a phone call, and guess who it was? That's right, it was her. And she was trying to basically squeeze her way back into my life again. And this was an extremely trying season for me, because keep in mind, I had already moved out. I'm already moving on, right? I'm trying to get over it. I'm basically crying all the tears out, right? I'm just getting over it, But yet, I mean, this is the girl I spent 7 years, And so it was hard for me to kind of let that go. But at the same time, I was definitely moving on. And I'm like, yes, I'm doing good, And then finally, she reached back out to me and tried to weave her way back into my life, and say, oh, I'm sorry or whatever, let's talk or whatever. And so one day I remember she walked into the trailer, and we sat there for a little while talking and stuff in the trailer. And I was so humbled. And just because of my current living situations and everything that I was reduced to. And so what ended up happening was, like, she basically tried to, make it work again. And I kind of fell for it to one degree. And I said, okay, well, I don't want you to move in with me, obviously, you know what I'm saying? But then here's what happened. Because of those couple of months that I was working, I was able to save up enough money to go rent my own apartment. And so now it's like March-ish or whatever, and now I'm ready to actually move out of that trailer. So the idea was that, maybe we can get back together again and so on, and let's see how it works. And so I was kind of falling for it. And here's what happened. This is what's crazy. Well, I was doing well. Keep in mind, I was doing well. Because from late October all the way to now, late March, something like that. I've been able to just carry on and move on. So now she's coming back into the picture. So it was very hard for me to just be like, oh, whatever, I'm already over you, And at the same time, I knew the trouble that it would be if I tried to go back to her, because I knew she wasn't a Christian, and I knew that God had already touched me ridiculously. I felt the incompatibility, and I was like, this is not God's will. Like, I shouldn't go back. You know what I'm saying? I shouldn't go back when God is trying to take me forward. And so what happened was, like, surely enough, I ended up moving out of the apartment, and I'm out of the trailer and found an apartment, and I moved in. She even helped me move into the apartment and stuff, as far as my furniture and stuff like that. And anyways, all that to say that, by the time April 11 came, which is my birthday, April 11, this is what happened. This is the crazy part. Now, keep in mind, me and her were not together. We were not together. But I was under the impression that she and the guy she cheated me with, her boss, that I was under the impression that they actually are not doing it. Like, they're not together anymore or whatever, that it didn't work out or whatever. And that's why she's trying to seek me back, So I'm like, okay, well, I'm saying, when she's trying to talk to me and trying to get back in my life, but the idea is that she's not with this guy anymore. Like, they basically broke it off or whatever. Like, I want to be with you or whatever. That's what she's saying. So I'm like, let's play it by the ear. Let's give it more time. So by the time end of March came, I already had my apartment. April 1, April 2, 3, 4, 5, everything is going well. We're calling each other, and I'm like, dang, I know I shouldn't be doing this, And let me tell you what happened. By the time April 8, anywhere between April 7 to like April 11, my birthday, there it was again, the feeling. And I'm like, why do I have a feeling like she's lying? Like, I have a feeling she's still with the guy. she's trying to get me back, or whatever it is, whatever the game she's playing. I have no clue what game she's playing, but she wants to just keep jumping back and forth. And so finally I said, like, I'm feeling that again. I'm feeling the separation, because keep in mind, we were texting each other, we were doing well as far as communication, but it kind of drifted off, and I felt the same feeling again. And I'm like, she's doing something. Like, she probably went back to the guy, or like, it's. And so no lie when I say this, like, I felt like those all those months from October till April now, all of the getting over that I had done, all of the tears, all of the crying, all of the, letting it all out, letting it go, that I was starting to do well. She comes back in, and surely enough, by the time April 9th or 10th or whatever came through, I'm like, I feel that all over again. It almost felt like it undid everything that I went through. In other words, I felt like I had to restart all over again from the October, and just restart crying all over again. Like, just, there you go back to square one, back to suffering. And so what happened was, by the time April 11 came by, it was my birthday. This was April 11, 2005. She actually, texted me happy birthday or whatever, and I'm like, hey, thank you. She came over, and she gave me a teddy bear or whatnot, and she gave me a little gift or whatnot, chocolates. I forgot what it was, but it was a teddy bear and a gift. And, she sat down by the bed, and she said, oh, happy birthday and stuff. And I'm like, thanks, but right when she was there in the bed, I knew it. This is the crazy part. Like, I knew it. She didn't have to say anything. Like, I already felt the disconnect. I'm like, I'm feeling the exact same thing I was feeling in the past. I felt it way too many times. I know exactly. I know that monster by name when it pops up. And so surely enough, I felt that. I'm like, something is off. And then surely enough, that was the last time I saw her, basically. Next thing you know, like, hey, how you doing or whatever? Nothing. It turns out that she actually was with the guy, or she went back to him or whatever like that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I remember that same day on my birthday, I remember falling to the floor and just wailing. I mean, I'm literally wailing. Not crying, I'm wailing. And I am screaming like if the neighbor would have heard it, they would have thought someone was getting stabbed. I mean, I went back to square one, and I'm like, how can I be so stupid to have, even though I didn't let her in fully, but I still opened up that door, and how could I have done that? Now I have to restart all over again. And surely enough, that's exactly what I had to do. And it was really hard. So from April 11 on, April, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and so on. Here's what ended up happening. She stayed with the guy, and I actually just never turned back. I moved on, And so what happened was, I didn't hear from her for about a year. And I'm like, what the heck? She took my son and everything. And so it turns out that she had moved 100 miles north, give or take. And basically, I didn't even know where she was. I had to serve her with papers. First of all, I went to the Social Security department. I mean, to the child support agency. And we can't give you any information. I went to the court system. We can't give you any information. Nobody wanted to help me. I'm like, listen, my son is missing. I don't know where she took my son. I have no idea where my son is right now. And I really didn't know where they went. All I know is that they had moved. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You know what I'm saying? So literally almost an entire year had passed, and I didn't even know where my son was. So what I had to do was I had to serve her. I had to hire a private investigator. I had to hire a private investigator to find her, and they did find her. They found her all the way 100 miles north, and surely enough, they found her and they served her the papers that she needs to appear for mediation or whatever. And so I was so frustrated. And finally, after about a year or so, I finally got a mediation case, and we sat together, and it was the first time I had seen her in almost a year. And it was a meeting that was very, very weird, because keep in mind, a year had passed and I'm already doing well with the Lord. I'm getting over it, I'm doing so good, going to church and growing and loving the cross, and even now at this point, teaching Bible studies and everything. And so anyway, it's all that to say that when we did the mediation, it was very civil between us, very, very civil, like I went in there, she went in there, it was straight to the point. This is what we want with my son, and it turns out that I had visitation rights as far as like, I would get him for the summer, I would get my son for the summer and for the holidays like Christmas and so on. And you listen, for as bad as a girlfriend that she was, for as terrible, she was very responsible in that sense. She never gave me a hard time about me seeing my son. She never discouraged it. She never did. She was very good at that. So that's one thing I respect her for. So from then on, I literally just focused on my son and my relationship with the Lord. And that's it for her side of the story, as far as like what happened to her, she married the guy, had 3 kids or whatever. And so, but as far as I'm concerned, I remained single for many, 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 many years, and trying to find the Lord and trying to like grow more in the Lord and, doing ministry. And so I literally fell in love with the Lord. And so that's my testimony, basically. My testimony is that, like, in a nutshell, going back to what I was saying in all my prior videos, let me go ahead and finish this with a summary and maybe a final conclusion. So to summarize it, I'll probably say, growing up in New York from a mediocre, right, home, not too rich, not too poor, definitely more on the poor side, to having lost my father, having lost my stepfather in Puerto Rico, having moved to Puerto Rico, and having had a very, very, very dangerous teenage years, and possibly, heading down to a point of no return. And that was literally, to this day, that's still the scariest. That is the scariest time of my life. It's my teenage years. But the most painful time of my life is anywhere between, 20 to 21 to 27. That was the most painful. Not to say that they weren't good times with her. Of course, we had a good relationship in any other aspect, but she was just unfaithful, very unfaithful, and it put a huge stain on the relationship. And so, but not to say that I was completely miserable the entire time. We did have good times together. So, anyways, so again, the scariest time of my life was my teenage years because of where I could have ended and the stuff that I was already doing. But again, the most painful was my young adult life. And so when I was 27 years old, that's when I got saved. Like, the Lord touched me, He reached out to me, He saved me. And then from 27 years old to the present right now, that's my Christian conversion. That's my life, my Christian life, and it's been the best time of my life, the happiest. So it's weird because I can go from I don't know what I would put my baby years, like my New York times. So this is what I can say. My times when I was a kid growing up, I would probably put that my childhood. I actually love my childhood, to be honest with you. Yes, I didn't have a father figure as far as my father. Yes, he left me and stuff. My stepdad came through and picked us up, and I listened from zero. I always say zero, but from 0 to 13 years old. I absolutely love that time of my life. I love my youth, my childhood. I really do. I have so many good memories, and there's a real sense in which I almost live in that time. Even now, my girlfriend knows this right now. My girlfriend knows that I tend to to always remind myself of when I was a kid. I love my childhood. Okay, my teenage years, I love the memories that I was able to do. The memories I was able to establish or whatever, but they were very, very scary times too. And then the most painful times, obviously no one wants to remember those, right? We want to set those aside. But it was not like it was without good stuff. You know, I had good times. I had a son, you know what I'm saying? And I did other stuff, playing basketball. And so I've had a great life, really. I really have had, despite all of the pain I've been through and all of the fears and stuff, I've had a relatively very good life, and God has been very good to me. Now, to kind of end this, this is all I want to say. This is going to be the last video of my story, because all that really remains as far as my story is it's a lot more details, but they don't really need to be said. However, one of the things I want to say is that what remains is basically my Christian life, which, you know, there's really not much to say, but that God has been ridiculously beast mode with me. Like, he is like, you know, I can tell you in passing, like literally in passing, all of the stuff that God has done for me, from doing leadership and Bible studies, from being licensed to preach. I can preach. We did a church plant. I was able to move to Jacksonville at some point and to do ministry there for a couple of years. And then I moved back to Port St. Lucie in 2015-ish, somewhere around there, or 16. And, you know, I am doing ministry now. I teach Bible studies, and I have a calling to plant a church and to be a pastor, you know. So all of those things are all of the things that God has been doing in my life that is like ridiculous. All of the things that I used to be, to see how God took me out of that, and now he's basically saying, you're working for me, right? Like, I own you now, you know? And let me tell you, like, again, you can't get a better employer than God. You just can't, you know. God is the best employer you can ever have, and I have no regrets whatsoever. And, you know, there's a sense in which, and I didn't mention this, but even a few years after I was already a Christian, already had way moved on with my life, you know, she had already moved on with her life, there was still some contact again. And to my shame, I would have to say that I almost fell back into it. And, but I was able to escape it by the grace of God. Like, literally, I was able to escape it by the grace of God. And I said to myself, I cannot, I will never be able to. And it wasn't even a matter of like, oh, this is so hard for me. Like, to me, it was a piece of cake. To me, it's like, yes, my flesh is wanting to jump all over that. But my spirit was like, there is absolutely no way I'll be able to go back to her. Like, impossible. And so what happened was, I mean, it was not even hard for me to be able to say, I just can't do it. You know, I can't. I would rather stay with the Lord. And so I did. I made the decision to stay with the Lord. And obviously, even when I say I made the decision, I don't mean to suggest that, God is so lucky to have me as a servant because I made a decision for him. That's not what I mean. I know that my decision for him is always because he has first chosen me, because he puts that in me, the power to be able to say no to that. So I give him all the credit, and I dare not try to rob him of any of the glory, like zero. I know that if he left me to myself, I wouldn't even be a Christian, trust me. And so this is where I'm at right now in my life. I serve the Lord. I have a calling, and I've been pursuing more ministry, and God did bless me with a girl recently in the past few years. And we're working on some things to see if the Lord opens up a door for us to make it right and make it legit, you know. And so, anywho, I think this is going to be the end of this video and the end of my biography. I hope you guys like it. Hope you guys subscribe. And also, we'll continue the videos on the summary of Christian doctrine where we left off, and I'm so looking forward to it. There's a sense in which I didn't even want to do this video. I'm like, I kind of don't want to do it, I just want to get into the Word, and it just goes to show you that I kind of have mixed feelings about sharing stories about me and making it about me and spending too much time about me, because I just want to talk about him. You know, I want to share him. I want to tell people about him and so on, even though a lot of this stuff, not a lot, but some of it pointed to God. I don't want to waste people's time. I feel like the time is too short and people need to hear the gospel. So that's what I'm gonna do. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope that if you're not subscribed, that you do subscribe. And I don't care anything about numbers, but what I do care about, like literally, I care nothing about numbers, but what I do care about is that you hear and that you get edified. Because even if I only had 1 subscriber, that's okay. You know, I have an audience, and God is using me, right? He can speak through me to be able to touch you, perhaps. And even if I could be wrong about stuff, which is obviously true, it doesn't mean that you guys can't comment below and also hit me up and also chat with me and also reach out to me and say, hey, you know, you were wrong about this, or maybe you can do it this way or whatever. So again, this is not a Danny to everybody else avenue, but rather this is a joint effort of trying to glorify God in all things. Anywho, let me stop right here. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching. Love you guys.